here's another business opportunity. Who's this thing? I'm going to scale it this quick and do all these different things. And they've burned themselves to the ground or shot themselves in the foot. Losing control and feeling like things are starting to slip is the absolute worst. And we know that comes in when our comfort zone starts to just creep in a little bit. And it's a little bit frustrating because we know what it's like, right? It's sort of like we can see this mountain out there that we really want to climb and scale. However, we're sort of in the cabin, toasted with a fire, like, oh, I don't want to leave this thing because that it's going to be cold outside and that's going to be hard. However, getting to the peak and getting to the top is our life's purpose, and we know that we need to get there. And just to ask the question, sort of, what does this comfort zone actually look like? For a lot of people, it's a little bit hidden and it evolves all the time. I know for people in business where there's highs is you're comfortable making the amount of money that you're making, and you're comfortable asking for the amount of money that you're currently asking as well. You're currently comfortable with the clients that you have, working with the clients that you are providing the delivery of service. You're comfortable with your team. It's like, I don't want to expand that thing. I don't want to go for better because that's more responsibility that I've got to put on myself. And then I know people who do get stuck in this limbo of, I really want to have the best relationship and I really want to succeed as best as I can. But I feel like if I start pursuing this success career more and more and more, that's more responsibility and more time that I have to put in there. How am I going to give back to this relationship? And then there's like relationship problems, health starts suffering. There is, you start going back on your routines. You're like, well, maybe I just like stop doing this. And then you get like really hungry. You're like, why am I so hungry all the time? And it's because you're tired. So you start like giving into the temptations of food or drinking and stuff like that. That's what the comfort zone looks like. And then you start going backwards because we haven't been in the position to start taking the steps forward to actually get out of there. So I just wanted to give you guys some tips, if this sort of sounds like you, of how to take control back of your life completely and wholeheartedly. Now, after studying the hero's journey and having the Set the Standard community and running multiple programs and building up my business and having people have some huge wins, like seeing people make their small state companies national after working with me, having people go from 30K clients that they're working with to 300K clients, to having people start their own first business and quit their job, chasing their passion, their purpose, to breaking up with their partners and finding their dream partner and being with them for years, and also losing a lot of weight and starting to get health focused, being someone who's been like, oh, who wants to go to the gym? There's all these like people in there that are like, they're either mean or judgmental, whatever it is. And they're like, wow, the gym's the most positive place ever. I've lost 25 kilos and now I'm chasing my dream job, doing what I absolutely love. Like, these stories are real and they're happening all the time in the community. And one of the reasons, like the Set the Standard community, you can check it out. You can go to Set the Standard community on Instagram, or you can head to my website, Get Started with Corey. You can have a bit of a look around there if you want to see any of those stories, right? It's crazy. So essentially what I wanted to share with you guys, how to take control back of your life. And there's a couple of different stages in the hero's journey that I want to talk to you about, of where we need to make those shifts and what to actually focus on so that we can watch that actually happen. Wow. So I've got to explain to you guys what I'll be doing in this. So this is going to force you to chuck your thinking caps on, because you're going to learn. And when you learn, you have these aha moments. You might be yawning a little bit. And then I'm going to get to the practical tools. And if you just want to skip forward to the practical tools, skip forward to the practical tools. However, you're not going to be as motivated or not be in a position to actually implement them as hard and as best as you could, unless you know why and you understand some of this theory, because that is what's going to give you the backbone to like, no, I'm definitely doing this and I'm going to stick to it for a long period of time. So I do challenge you to listen to this. I'm going to talk about the hero's journey. I'm going to talk about roughly a description of what that's like. I'm going to go through a couple of the different steps and how to actually imply them and what they mean, with a little bit of philosophy behind them. And then I'm going to go through the practical tools about what to actually do now so that you can implement these changes and watch them come to fruition. So I'm going to start at the hero's journey. And this actually isn't going to be that long, guys. It should be roughly about 20 minutes to explain it all. So thinking caps on, let's go for it. So essentially the hero's journey sort of works like this. You're in the known world, and essentially, let's say, for example, you haven't started your business yet, for example, and it's just like a plumbing business or something. You're in the known world because you have your normal job right now, you've got your certificate, and you want to jump in and actually start your business. Starting your business is the unknown world. Same thing for a student or a project or whatever it may be, online business, whatever. And you start the business and you get to go through all of these processes of the contracts and the government stuff and setting up bank accounts and setting up, the business bank accounts and numbers and names and all these different things and insurances. And then you got to find your clients and your customers. You got to do your marketing and you got to get really good at what you're doing. Then you got to provide the service. And then you got to make sure there's following up with the service. And there's actually a lot to do when you start to figure these things out, right? It's crazy. So essentially, what that is you've gone from the known world into the unknown world, having to learn all of these different things, which is what is called, going on the call to adventure and then crossing the threshold, which is all the certificates, blah, 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 and then entering the belly of the whale. Entering the belly of the whale is a section of the hero's journey where essentially you are in it and it is tough. And a lot of people don't make it through the belly of the whale because that is when you're consumed by everything and you've got to overcome the challenge and the hurdles, all the mindsets and the emotions that come along with it, because just the stress and the pressure that we put on ourselves to succeed is just absolutely insane. But it wouldn't be any fun if we didn't, right? So essentially after you cross those things and have actually gotten through the belly of the whale, which a lot of people don't, there's these two sort of feminine sections of the hero's journey, meeting with the goddess and then dealing with the goddess of temptations. And essentially what that is, I believe a lot of people is they're working with their relationship with money and what they start doing with it. Are they saving the money and they're not spending it? That means their relationship's too clingy with the goddess of the temptations and feminine. Or are they spending it willy-nilly? Are they spending it on jet skis and other things and holidays and travel, and then they're not looking at it and they're like, holy shit, tax time comes and god damn it, why did I spend all this stuff and didn't set it up properly? I didn't educate myself well enough. Or they start spending it on drugs, alcohol, drinking. They start something may have happened in their relationship where their partner, a lot of that happens with business as well. Because how do you balance business and a really good relationship? There's always struggles that is going to happen there. One thing that I see often with men, which is really interesting, is they give too much of their time and attention into the business for their partners, as they want their partners to succeed, and they spend all the money in the world on them, and the next minute the partners leave them and they're like, what the hell is actually happening? And it's because they lost a sense of who they are and identified themselves in their business, and they're doing it for the reason to impress and keep her when all she wanted was your presence the whole time anyway. Didn't care. So it's balancing those and having the communication to fix that. But we're not here to talk about that. But there's some of the things that can happen with that part of the hero's journey. Or it can just be temptations themselves, drugs, alcohol, the rest of it, travel. Could be temptations in terms of being reactive of, here's another business opportunity, who's this thing, I'm going to scale it this quick and do all these different things, and they've burned themselves to the ground or shot themselves in the foot because they have been reactive instead of actually thinking about things and making good decisions. Now, what I'm talking to people is people who have sort of, within this part of the podcast, who have transcended that. They know the temptations have been there, they've sort of gotten through it, or they have gotten through it and they understand what it's like, and they're really ready to get to that next level of their career, of success, of having freedom and fulfillment in their lives and having so much fun with what they're actually doing and just creating abundance and really living it and being present in the moment and feeling grateful for it and being in the position to actually give back. So if you're in that position where you're feeling stuck, you've started to overcome some of these things, you may need a little bit of work, or you've completely done, this is the two parts of the hero's journey, which is so essential. Now, if you haven't cleared any of that out yet, or you haven't worked on your temptations or relationships of where everything's going in your business, with finance, with your health, with your relationship, then I would highly challenge you and encourage you to join one of the programs in the Set the Standard community or one of my programs. Head to getstartedwithcorey.com, and I encourage you to jump on the all-in program. If not, join the membership and jump on Overcome the Chaos and start working through those modules. Start talking to people, chatting about them. You can literally join our community straight away, and people will jump on the phone with you and help you transcend these problems. We've had people come in and do 4 weeks, crush it, leave, and completely change their life. We've had other people stay for years because they just never want to go back. They just love being held to high standards and consistently raising their standards. So it's up to you, but I challenge you to come in and actually have a little bit of a play around and transform yourself if you're in that section. Now, I'm going to be talking to people now who are sort of ready to move through the next ones. And there's 2 different phases. And this may be you as well. But if it is you as well, we've got to move through the other stuff first. The 2 steps are, there's one called atonement with the Father, and the other step is called apotheosis. Now, atonement with the Father is essentially you killing off an old version of yourself and saying hello to a new version of yourself. It's a part of the hero's journey, or the story where you always hear the hero goes into the dragon's cave to slay the dragon. He slays the dragon, grabs the gold, and gets out. That slaying of the dragon process is the process that's called atonement with the Father. So you're having to let parts of yourself go. And if you're identifying yourself in the position where I was talking about beforehand, where the guy's identifying himself with the business and he's doing it all for the reason of impressing his partner, is if he has to let go of those identity of what he has with the business. And most of the time, the men get stuck in here, I believe, and this is women as well. So I work with women clients, and this is quite prevalent with them, is people are just possessed by being too much of a warrior, where they're coming in, they're like, I need to do all these things and crush, and do all this, and they get consumed that they forget the lover part of themselves, and they forget the hero part of themselves that's supposed to overcome these things, and then they create a comfort zone around becoming a workaholic. Like, I am so stressed unless I'm at work, sitting down, and I can really chill out because I know that, you know, everything's going to work out really well while I'm actually at work. And this happens with a lot of my clients. Is really funny and really interesting watching them come in and then feel actually more comfortable while they're at work than when they're actually at home. And that's because they're just so obsessed with getting things done because they believe that busy is going to get them there. And then what happens is they are busy, but they're hesitating and procrastinating on what's truly important because it's bigger and scarier, because it controls an emotional response of taking on more responsibility, and they can't because they haven't created emotional freedom for themselves because they're too busy, right? So it seems counterintuitive. Really interesting. So essentially, you have to let go of those parts of yourself. We'll say you have to. It is advisable to let go of those parts of yourself so that you can create some room for yourself, which leads into the next phase and the next step called apotheosis. And this is one of my favorite stages of the hero's journey. And essentially what this means is to elevate into divine status. So where you become the best version of yourself. And you can see this in movies when Simba in The Lion King has that iconic scene of him just like running along like the Sahara Desert or what it is and heading back to the Pride Lands because he just started to own himself as a king. He's like, no, I'm the king. I got to go back, challenge Scar. Like, whoa, goosebumps when I think about that. Best moment, right? In The Lion King. It's so good. And when Neo in The Matrix has that moment in the end of the first movie when he realizes he's actually the one and he's like, you know, I'm the one, does his Superman thing, the ground starts rippling, he starts flying. It's Spider-Man when he's like, okay, I actually am going to help people, and Peter Parker's like, I'm Spider-Man and I'm going to start owning this right now and just like really leaning into being a superhero. It's also the part of when Goku turns Super Saiyan out there from our anime fans. It's like when he actually turns Super Saiyan and owns that and he owns himself as being like really powerful. It's like, wow, that's a really good moment of him when he is gone through apotheosis. It is also talked through and studied through the Greek myth of Dionysus, of a Greek god. You may not know who he is, but he's the god of wine and festivities and fun, essentially. And the story of Midas, everything I touch turned to gold. So essentially, he granted Midas that wish that he could turn everything to gold. But he wasn't a part of Mount Olympus and in the heavens, and he had to sort of buy his way in and elevate into a divine status by proving how strong and how capable he was, and all the gods fell in love with him, essentially, and they allowed him come into heaven, and that's the story of, you know, apotheosis. So here's the original story of it. Now, essentially, the main question to ask in apotheosis is, well, how do we do that? And it's essentially getting to the period of our own lives where we have right belief, right intentions, right speech, right actions, right livelihood, right endeavoring, right mindfulness, and right concentration to release the potential within us all that anyone can attain so that we can find out what we're truly capable of and start to absolutely crush that. And that happens through a process of finding your own self-discovery, having challenging experiences, embracing change, how I talked about beforehand, leadership, and having a new mindset. And it's really funny because embracing change is the main part, right? And when it comes to embracing change, essentially we get stuck in this period where we have this fear of changing because we don't want to lose that sense of self that we've created. So if you think about that guy who has, you know, say he's got a plumbing career and he's put himself in the business too much, and then he's identified himself with the business and used the business for his relationship and his partner, and then she's left him and he's thinking, what the hell, why did this even happen? So getting rid of that identity of yourself and having to lose parts of that, it's either going to get shattered by them. If you're not growing and consistently growing your own sense of identity, it's just going to happen for you. Somewhere in the universe, like a partner leaving you will happen, or, you know, a client will like move away, or someone in your work you'll have to fire as an employee. That's all going to help you to increase yourself and your sense of who you actually are. Instead, what we want to do is to consistently change that for ourselves and be aware of that when we have to change. So we're changing in advance for when the world would be like, okay, let's challenge them and give them a test here. And we think, oh, God damn. So we have to consistently evolve who we think of ourselves. Now, we don't want to change. We have this fear of change because losing our sense of identity is tough and we have to, but we do have a yearning to adapt and grow and leaning into that adapt and grow. Because if we're not adapting and growing, then we're stuck in the void. We're stuck in the wasteland where we've left the palace. There's a huge wasteland and we want to get to, the next village or the next town where there's new adventure and fun and, the challenges to find out what we're truly capable of and put ourselves to the test there. And being stuck in that void, in that wasteland, we will remain there until we lean into doing something that's going to make us adapt and grow or change our own sense of identity. Now, the question is, how do we actually do that? And what does that look like in the modern world? I'm going to tell you. By the way, guys, thinking caps, if they're on, we're almost at the practical section. So you've got a little bit more of thinking. Please take this in. Write some notes if you need to. Take a pause for a second. Shake it off. Come back. So the apotheosis for the modern man, what that looks like is a personal growth win where we actually install new habits, and they've done, or we overcome a personal challenge, anxiety, depression, an addiction of some sort, being a workaholic, drinking, video games, whatever it may be, porn, and you're stuck in those positions. What is that? Number one, career change. So a new business, a career transition, new professional relationships, working on a new project, evolving and expanding your current business or your team, or taking on bigger projects, or taking on smaller multiple projects, or leveling yourself up as a coach and getting better clients or bigger clients or clients that are going to stretch you and challenge you and test you. What are they actually going to be? Entrepreneurial success. So overcoming product or service challenges to meet the needs of your actual customers. So we know what that's like, especially if you're on an entrepreneurial journey, creating a product, selling it, creating a service, selling it, but having those automations and systems and processes put in place and delivering and having feedback and getting really good results and finally having those things starting to actually work and be ingrained and seeing success coming in. Wow, entrepreneurial success. That's a form of apotheosis. Last one, influence. So this isn't the last one, sorry. Last one on my slides, I'm looking here. So influence is actually developing a strong brand. So if it's influence, like looking at your brand across your social media or wherever your main marketing is, where your career where your landing pages are, or where people go to shop or buy for you, and then the actual service that you give. It's consistent branding across all of those things. That is a huge apotheosis to see. Next one is leadership and success. So that is when your team actually buy in from you. They're like, hell yes, I love what you're saying. I love what you're doing. Let's do that. Creative expression. So a new level of mastery in creating or sharing parts of yourself that you might have been scared of, or art that you might have been scared of sharing before. And then you're like, no, I'm sharing this. This is going to be the best. That's apotheosis. Or I'm going to start this new Instagram page, or I'm going to start actually creating this thing. Or I'm going to start a podcast, whatever it may be. Or I'm going to create just my own version of myself and go travel around the world. Like, this is going to be the best thing. I can't wait to express myself. And I'm actually going to give myself permission to do that. Relationship building. So having new communication skills to overcome anxiety, rejection, or to create and maintain like really meaningful relationships, or new relationships that are challenging, and new relationships that inspire you, or reconnecting in certain relationships, or just knowing that your relationship circle around you is really good, and even getting rid of old relationships, and then really working on your own ones and just feeling really confident and secure in those. It's amazing. So that's some of the stuff in the modern world, right? Of forms of apotheosis. So how do we do that? Well, essentially what we can control, we can change. So this is how we take back control, by essentially changing. Now, what can we control? And there's 3 different things here. One is, I like to call this, so this is the action taking step, guys. So you can take a weight off. Oh, you finally just got here. Let's get into it. So there's 3 different things. 1, how to embrace change is purge. Going through a whole bunch of purging, throwing out old stuff, getting rid of all the old stuff so there's room for the new. 2nd, refurbishing. So this is essentially refurbishing a room or refurbishing some parts of your life to make it look better and feel better, so that you're feeling more of a new you stepping in, saying goodbye to the old. And then the other one is remodeling, essentially. So this is upgrading you. What does that actually look like to remodel your own sense of self? So let's start at the start and go back to purging. What does purging look like? Essentially, it's purging your environment, identity pieces of yourself, conversations, places, relationships, Careers, projects, old parts of yourself. How are you going to do those? Well, if we start with the environment, that's throwing out all of your clothes, that's going through your phone, getting rid of unsubscribing to all the emails, getting rid of all your bad photos and old videos that you don't need anymore, cleaning up all of your apps, going in, turning off all your notifications, reorganizing your phone so that it's beautiful, unfollowing the people you don't want to follow anymore, follow the people that you do really want to follow, look at where your subscriptions and different things are and get rid of a whole load of them so that you feel a lot more stress. And oh my goodness, just saying that makes me feel a lot less stressed. So that's some other things. Going through your offices, your car, your workspace, your clothes, throwing out the old clothes, going through your pantry, throwing out all the old food, all the things that might have been in there for a year that you're never going to use, that tamarind paste or tomato sauce at the back there. Like, let's throw that one out there. Like, hey, this thing doesn't expire for 3 years. Why am I eating this anyway? But go through, throw all of that stuff out, throw out all of your plates, pots, pans, any of the things that you don't use. Get rid of those. Books, whatever needs to be cleaned out, chuck it out. We had Sam, or someone I worked with, he went through his hobby shed and threw out like thousands and thousands of dollars. He's giving away surfboards and wetsuits and all these different like golf gear and all these other different hobbies. Like I think pretty sure he gave like a trailer, all these different like camping gear, like so much camping stuff he threw out. And he's like, this is the best thing they've ever done. I've also worked with people where they've gone, why do I need to purge my ex-girlfriend or like my girlfriend at the time? We've had people when we're like, oh, now this is saying that this is coming in with relationships. Whilst we've been coaching, we've tried everything that we have could to make this relationship work in every single type of way and manner. However, when we come to the end of it, it was like, well, you're growing in this relationship. You've tried everything possible and they have some insecurities that they need to figure out themselves and it's not serving in the relationship, which really sucks. Then he's come up to me and just said, I think I need to purge my girlfriend. Like, this is insane. So we've gone through the processes of that actually happening. So what is that? Career. If you're stagnant in your career and you think to yourself, I can't get out of here. Like, yes, you can. It's your choice. Whatever job or whatever business that you have, or whatever career that you've created for yourself, it is your choice always to stay in there. You can always have something better if you want it. And if you're ready for a purge, maybe it's time. So there's conversations. So there should be some certain clearing conversations that you need to have with people to purge as emotions and things that you may have, or old parts of yourself like, oh, let's get rid of these, or even places. Going to some places and maybe just saying goodbye. I'm never coming back here again. See you later. That's a really nice purge to have, because then it just takes all of this weight off of you and you can start the process of apotheosis and stepping into the best version of yourself, elevating to that divine status within inside you. The next one, refurbish. So let's get in this. That's upgrading your space. And I say this, just make one room really beautiful in your house. And there's a bit Jordan Peterson inspiring, but oh my goodness, it's so good with it. Might just be some plants, or it could be your car. Like, get drastic with it. I like my office, so I've just changed it recently. I've got some more things I've literally just ordered behind me. If you can see, listen to the podcast, there's like, I've got the split things. I've got these soundproof boards and they come to halfway on my camera. I need to get the rest. I literally bought them a couple of days ago, so I can't wait to stick all of them up when they get delivered. All these panels, so it looks really nice and sexy in here. So cleaning up your space, I changed the whole thing around, moved things around. I'm like, oh, I feel so good in here. I feel like I can create so much better. So whatever you need to refurbish, please go out there and refurbish that. The next one is remodeling you. Actually spend a little bit of time and think about you at the best version of yourself. Like, what does that person actually look like, and what are they doing? What are they doing in their leadership career? What are they doing for health and fitness? What are they doing with their friends and relationships? Like, what are they doing in their calendars? Do they need to clean anything up, whatever it is? But what do they actually look like? Do you need to get a new haircut? Dye your hair, get a tattoo, like buy some new clothes, buy some new gear, like my podcast gear. I've got like some new bum bags and backpacks. It's like the best thing ever. I'm like, oh, I had a backpack like for 5 years and I thought, like, it still works. It's really good. The zips on there are great, but it's a little bit dirty. And I think, why would I need to throw this thing out? I got a new backpack recently. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I needed this so much and I feel way more me. I feel way more me. Your digital presence, what does that look like to remodel you? What does the best version of yourself look like? What are they doing on like digitally? What does that look like? Upgrade that. Put out some posts that are going to make you feel uncomfortable. Start doing those things. Do you need to get a new purpose? Mine changed. It used to be to consistently overcome myself, to challenge and set the standard for all inspiring leaders. Crazy, right? New purpose. Felt really good. Or do you need to start or upgrade the next project? Like, what are you currently doing? Do you need to take on a new project to get out of your business? Or do you need to do something where you got to put $10,000 on a credit card and put the firecracker up your ass to get started on doing something that you need to do so you can actually pay that back, and you've put it all into a new business or a new project or whatever it may be? It could be a whole lot more than that. Who knows? But that's pressure onto yourself to actually move forward. And would you even take that risk if you're in the best version of yourself? Do you, when you look at yourself, need to hire more of a team? Dun, 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 dun. So there's all these questions there, right? And remodeling yourself. And I think this is quite fantastic to look at. Joe Dispenza had a really good quote, and that is, if you want a new outcome, you have to break the habit of being yourself and reinvent your new self. I just did a podcast on the 6 habits that I think are really, a YouTube video, on the 6 habits that I think are essential for us to change in 2023. And you can click down one of the links below to watch that video in terms of how to implement new habits and put them in. However, this process of apotheosis is what's going to get you there. But first, we got to create room. And I like using this analogy, and it's I like to call it the oak tree, the plant in a pot analogy. Essentially, if you want to get a bigger plant, and if you're a plant and you're big and you're strong and you've maxed out your pot and it's got all the dirt and stuff in there and you feel like, holy, like containing everything right now is hard. Well, we got to get a bigger pot. So you get a bigger pot, you put the dirt and the plant in the bigger pot, and now there's some room. And now the plant can actually grow to fill that pot. And once that's happened, okay, we need to create some more room. So we're going to get a bigger pot, and then we put the plant in that pot, and then it can grow out bigger and better and grow into a big, strong oak tree, whatever it is, until eventually you go put it out in nature. This is the best, and it can express itself at its true potential and what it's most capable of. Amazing. So how do we do that? And that is going through this process of apotheosis, understanding some self-discovery, knowing that we have to say goodbye to our old parts of ourselves. So what does that physically look like? It looks like getting rid of all the old stuff, doing a massive emotional, mental, physical cleanup so that we can have room and space to put in all the things that we most want to do now so that we can really feel like who we are and start making the decisions to progress to where we most want to be and get to where we want to be, specifically because we've started taking action. Now, if that is ingrained as a habit and we start compounding, and you talk about the flow of emotions and the flow of energy, when you start cleaning these things up, it's like, make sure you follow it through to the end, because opportunities and ideas are going to come to you and you will be less reactive and you'll be making really good decisions. And there may be some real good opportunities, but by the time you've finished actually cleaning up, there could be some better ones. So that is how I best believe you can take control back of your life. So if you enjoyed this podcast and you thought it was useful, please share it with a friend. We think that would be great. Share it your story on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, Corey Boutwell. That's Corey with an E, at Corey Boutwell on Instagram. You can head to my website, getstartedwithcorey.com. And if you're interested in working through this process, this is something that we are teaching in Set the Standard All-In program, and that has just been released. If you're listening to this, it's still a module that is up there, but it's just been released. Essentially, we're catching up every single week to talk about all these different modules, but this is one of the modules that we are working on specifically to hold you accountable and make sure that people are having these huge changes, and we are seeing huge changes. So if you're listening to this at the time, we've already got roughly 20 people in the all-in program, and they are crushing it, and it's crazy to see the results. And if you don't want to miss out and you have the fear of not knowing what other people knowing and other people getting ahead of you, like, well, get ahead of them then. And this is one thing that you can do in order to do that. You're going to create some room, grow into a bigger oak tree. The best. Quite simple and standard. And if you're interested in that, send me a message on Instagram, or my email link is down below here, and you can click on that and send me an email, or you can just head to the website and buy it. So big love, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.